the last two popes of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis and now Pope Leo XIV, both worked in South America, areas where they saw a great disparity between the rich and the poor, those who had and those who had not, a great disparity. Now, a pope, and we see that not only with these two popes, we also see it with St. John Paul II, for example, in the things that he experienced growing up, what he saw. There's always going to be an influence of that on the pope. So they may have a certain kind of emphasis or bent towards one way or the other or a particular thing. And this is the case with the last two popes. They're going to have that bent towards what we're talking about here as social justice. This great disparity between those who have and those who have not. And Pope Leo XIV wrote about this in his latest encyclical on AI, that he really takes issue with this sort of imbalance of resources, imbalance of wealth in the world, because he experienced that. He lived among those people who were victims of that, and he saw that great disparity. So naturally, he's going to talk a lot about social justice. But this does not mean we swing from a focus on personal morality, in other words, sexual morality, that church is so famously known for, and swing over to another pole of social justice. Social justice, yes, it is important, of course, but it also has a certain abstract sort of character to it. We speak in terms of almost abstract thoughts, such as our terms like racism, equality, poverty, the disparity of wealth. We speak of in terms that are, in a sense, somewhat abstract. Yes, they are in reality, but they're somewhat abstract. And we can work in the area of the abstract very easily. It can make us feel righteous or really good because you're not dealing with something that's really, really hands-on, really, in a sense, personal. And we can therefore kind of neglect or think it's okay, personal sin, as it were, especially in the area of sexuality, is, it's okay, not so important, as long as I'm helping to stamp out poverty and racism and so on. And this is the tendency if we swing between one emphasis or the other. As we keep saying here, it's always in the both and. Sexual morality and social justice are both equally important. However, we maintain here, and you look at the scripture, look at the church tradition, the area of the personal sin, that which is very personal to us, personal responsibility to ourselves first and those closest to us, such as in marriage, in the areas of sexuality, that deserves pride of place because that's the origins of everything. Just as we see Michelangelo's creation, and we see God creating Adam, and we see in the mind of God still Eve, who's looking towards Adam as though she knows that her vocation will be to be united with him. And so the personal, how we see ourselves as a human person, how we see ourselves as man and woman according to God's design, not our ideologies, not our trends and fads, but how God intended the order of the human person and man and woman. That, of course, brings us in the area of sexuality. When we talk about sexuality, we're not just talking about sex. We're talking about the whole order, God's whole divine order of relatability between man and woman, of relational intimacy and the generativity of life. That's where everything begins. If we don't get that right in ourselves or between man and woman, in our households, in our families, our marriages, then we really don't get social justice right. Everything begins with the understanding in a very personal way of the human person, especially as man and woman, and in particular in our human sexuality, because that, as St. John Paul II says, our sexuality makes us most like God.